What is it like to be an INFJ? I'm not going to break down each of the individual parts of the Myers-Briggs definition of an INFJ. I'm going to tell you what it's like to be an INFJ from the inside, from someone who is an INFJ and didn't understand this about myself until much later in my life. Too long didn't read version is sometimes it really sucks and sometimes it's really amazing. My favorite parts of being an INFJ is when you are having those conversations with people where you really connect with them and you say something and you watch this light bulb go off in their mind where they realize something about themselves that's been in front of them the whole time but they couldn't see. And you just know at that moment that you've changed the path of their life for the good, that they see something that they can actually take control of and make their life better. That is one of the most amazing parts of being an INFJ, and it's one of the things that I love the most about being an INFJ. If you're an INFJ and you've had experiences like this, tell me about them. Leave a comment below. I think that'd be really cool to share these experiences so that other people can read them and know they're not alone. This is something we all experience at some point. INFJ is one of the 16 categories of the Myers-Briggs Personality Index. And I don't want to go into what it means to be introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. There are lots and lots of videos on YouTube about that and defining what each of those is and how you express it and blah, blah, blah. That really doesn't tell you what the experience of being an INFJ is. I haven't seen many videos or any videos that really get into it from the side of an INFJ. And I want to express really clearly that my experience isn't going to be everyone's experience, but I think it's pretty common because other people I've met like me, we all kind of share these things. So let's talk about that. The first thing is, it really sucks. You feel like an alien. You feel like you view the world completely different from everybody else and no one understands. And you spend a lot of time trying to express something that seems really simple and obvious to you, to people, but you can't find the words for it. And they just look at you like you're got three heads. They don't get it. They're like, why are you like this? I've had lots of friends tell me, hey, just try doing it this way. That's how everyone else does it. And maybe then you'll be happy. That's not how life works. So being an INFJ can be really lonely and isolating a lot of times. We spend a lot of time, I think, early in life trying to cover that up, trying to fit expectations, whether it's being more extroverted or not sharing the things we understand, that are intuitions about people and situations, because we get shunned, we get told we're wrong, we get told don't be so judgmental, don't make assumptions, all these things, even though over and over and over again, we know we're right because we see the results that we predict. That part is tough. But then when we do connect with someone, like you're at a party, you start a conversation with somebody, and then the next thing you know, like 2 hours have gone by and they're as connected to you as you are to them. That is an amazing experience. It's something that I crave all the time. I seek it out and I am constantly disappointed because other people very often just don't want to connect on that level. Or you get that moment of connection, but it's in a situation where it's not appropriate and you can't maintain it for any length of time. Then you never get that moment again with that person. That can be really frustrating. The really cool side of this is that the person that you're having this connection with feels it too. And for them, it always is something really special to them. They don't get that nearly as often as we do. We have this innate ability to really connect with people in that one-on-one way that makes them feel really heard and seen. And it's really special to other people. It's like you can literally turn your focus on somebody who is feeling alone and isolated, and you sense that, and you can turn your focus on them and make them feel really seen and heard. One of my favorite things to do is when there's a group of people having a conversation and there's one person who's kind of on the outside and you can tell they kind of feel left out, is being the one to pull them in. Say, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I know you had this, you told me this one story, why don't you share it with everybody else? And suddenly, because I've validated them to the group, they get brought in. That's a really cool power that being an INFJ has. And it's not exclusive to INFJs, but it's something that I think a lot of us have seen that we have that ability. And if sharing that connection with somebody in front of other people, we bring them in. The downside oftentimes is that we shine our light on other people in that moment to kind of make them feel heard. And then we get trapped. Okay, now this person really wants to unload and share everything with me, like I'm their therapist. And I just wanted to make them feel better in the moment. I didn't really sign up for all of that. But I also don't want to hurt their feelings, so I have a really hard time disengaging. That's another thing about being an INFJ is we're very empathetic, and we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We're very engaged in how other people feel, so when we make them feel bad, we feel bad. The reason we shine our light on this person is because they were feeling bad. We wanted them to feel better, and now we feel guilty because if we cut them off, we're the one who made them feel bad. Another weird thing about INFJs that I've had to learn to really embrace was knowing outcomes of things. A lot of times, two people get together in a relationship and I can see this one is not going to last. This is not a good match. Or it's going to last, but it's going to be problematic. It's going to be a toxic relationship. You're going to go back and forth. Being able to predict those things pretty easily, you might say, well, you've been around a long time. You're in your 50s. You've seen a lot, so you've experienced this. But I was able to do this in high school when I had very little experience with relationships, and invariably I was right. That's a really cool thing. And as you get more in tune with your intuition, being able to see like social dynamics, workplace dynamics, walking into just like a party or a bar or restaurant or a nightclub or any kind of social gathering, you can just read the energy of a room and kind of know which way things are going to go. But it can also be bad when you're like, okay, things are not going to go well here, and everyone around you is like, oh no, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. Like, don't be such a downer. Like, yeah. And sometimes you question yourself. It's like, because then when it does go as you predicted it, you're like, was I the one who made it go bad? Because the same way that you can direct your light at somebody and bring them into a group, do you question whether you have the ability to just like force down the energy in a room? And I don't know the answer to that. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. The flip side of that is I have good intuition for when things are going to be fun and when things are going to work out. Sometimes I can't even explain why. When somebody's got a crazy plan to do something or, a project or whatever, it's like, everyone's like, how's that going to work? That'll never work. That's ridiculous. And I'm like, it's going to work. And I know. That's just being an INFJ. You just have that intuition and you just know things that are going to work out. And intuition and empathy really go hand in hand, but they are different things. And intuition is that understanding of how things are going to work. Empathy is that same idea, that same understanding focused on an individual where you sense their emotional states. You feel the same emotional state they do. Before I understood I was an INFJ and I didn't understand that empathy was a real thing that could be measured and tested, I didn't understand why I had certain mood swings. I'd be in a great mood and then I'd be in a bad mood, and I didn't realize that I was reading other people. So that part can suck until you understand it and you learn to develop those tools. Developing those tools is something I spend a lot of time doing for myself, and now I teach to other people. So that's something, if you're interested in, click the link below, we can talk about it. The flip side of empathy is this constant desire to smooth things over for everybody. You want to make your space as harmonious as possible. You want peace. There's nothing I want as an INFJ more than just peace, which is why I spend a lot of time alone, because when I'm alone, like at home or on my motorcycle or doing whatever just by myself, I can control the situation. I can control my mind. I control my thoughts. I control the environment. I can choose my peace. When there's other people around, it's harder because I read their emotions, I read their emotional states, I have to deal with their dynamics, and if there's more people, there's interdynamics and all those things to deal with. That becomes very stressful for me, very difficult. So I'm very selective about who I let into my space. And that's another thing about being INFJs is we tend to have a very small circle of friends. But one of the things I've become aware of is that we have a lot of people who consider us a close friend. That's part of the connection that we have with people. They feel very connected to us, even though they don't really know that much about us. We haven't really shared a lot of our deep insights with them. The people whom I share with very deeply are a very close, small knit group of friends, and I am very guarded about it, and I am very meticulous in weeding out anybody that I don't feel safe around. At the same time, like I said, lots of people consider me a close friend and a confidant, and they unload and share a lot of stuff with me because they know they're safe in doing so. That's why INFJs are often considered advisors, counselors, therapists, those kinds of things. It's why we gravitate towards those roles in life as professionals, because that's just how we work. Like, think about it, you're a therapist. When you go to a therapist, you unload all of the stuff to them, you tell them anything, and they don't tell you anything about themselves. INFJs tend to do that just naturally. We keep all of our stuff close to our chest, but we carry a lot for you. And there's the downside is we carry a lot. When somebody gives us all this stuff, we worry about them. We try and find solutions for them, and we try and find gentle ways to suggest those solutions without feeling like we're stepping over our boundaries or their boundaries. And boundaries are another area where we have problems. Like I said, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, so we have a hard time drawing boundaries. Even when people are harming us, we don't want to make them feel bad. Because we also understand that whatever they're doing that's harming us, they probably aren't doing with malice. They just don't understand the impact they're having because they lack the intuition and empathy that we have, and we understand that lack. And so we account for it, maybe too much, overcompensate. So that's a problem. Another thing about being INFJs is I like my structure. We are very structured people. We have habits and rituals, not to the point of being superstitious, but just we like certain things a certain way. We get up in the morning, we go through our routine. We like to do our same routine every morning. We eat the same breakfast, routines that we stick to, and then we know they work for us. Even getting out of our routine can be routine. Like we'll set aside time to be spontaneous. We'll set aside time to do something that we normally wouldn't do, like date night. If you're in a relationship and you do date night, that might be your spontaneous time, but it's scheduled to be on the same night every week. So you have a scheduled spontaneity. It's one of the weird things we do. At the same time, I'm not really that great at being spontaneous. I like to think things through. I like to have a plan. Sometimes my plan is to let the more spontaneous person lead the way and just go with the flow. That can be actually really comforting to me, to an INFJ, when you know you can trust someone to not lead you astray, not lead you down a bad path, and know they know enough about you. They're not going to take you someplace that's going to make you uncomfortable. They also know you enough and love you and care for you enough that if you say, I don't want to be here, they're going to be, okay, let's go. They're going to be, or, hey, cool, I'm going to stay. You go do your thing, and you're not going to be made to feel guilty or bad about it. Those are the people that you let in close, and they're very rare and hard to find. Once you find them, you hang on to them. But spontaneity is not a thing that we really like. We like to have plans. INFJs are really good at figuring out systems. We recognize patterns in social dynamics and behavior. We're able to pick out this person has similar characteristics, so they're probably going to act that way in that situation. So we can predict things in advance as part of our intuition, but we're also work really well organizing things. For example, when I'm bartending, I would set up systems for where all my tools were, where my bitters were, where my fruits were, where my shakers were, so that I could move most efficiently in my space. I know other INFJs do very similar things in their work environment, in their home life, like look at their bathrooms. It may not be like neat and clean, organized, like, this spick and span type A personality thing, but they have things where they want them. And it may even be chaotic, but it's an organized chaos. They still know where all those things are. And it's right there, ready for them to use the way they like to use it. Constantly refining techniques and skills to get better and better at the things they do all the time. If they like the same breakfast, they may have really defined a very specific way in which they cook it, from what spatula they use to flip their eggs in the preferred pan and which burner it's on, and the brand and grade of grits they use, or the type of cream they like in their coffee, the brand of coffee they like to use, the grind they use for their particular method of making coffee. All of these things, they get better and better and better and better at it. They get it more and more refined. That's very much an INFJ thing. And then they can change. They suddenly go, I'm suddenly sick of this thing after months or years of doing it. I'm going to do it differently, because they like to experiment also. But their experimentation is more investigation. They're going to go down a path. Okay, once I decide I'm focusing on something, I'm going down that path, and I'm going to find out as much as I can about that until I'm satisfied that I've got it, and then I'll move on to something else. So we kind of collect skills. I've had several different careers: bartender, woodworker, life coach. I have hobbies like riding motorcycles and building motorcycles and bushcraft and all these different things. I get into something and I just go really into it. A lot of INFJs do that, and they're very internal. So they're this investigating these things gives them something to think about, and they're just constantly thinking and thinking and thinking. So sometimes when an INFJ just kind of disassociates, it's not even because they're in an uncomfortable situation. It's just because their brain doesn't want to be there right now. It wants to be doing that other thing that they're really focused on. The intense focus is another thing about INFJs. I've been called an intense person a lot, which seems odd to me because I don't feel like I'm particularly intense. I feel like I'm kind of standoffish, actually. But a lot of people find the INFJs very intense because when we look at somebody, we see them in a very whole way. So that intensity, for some people, is very off-putting. They don't like to be looked at that intense. They're just like, okay, I don't really need to be seen that much. It makes them uncomfortable. Other people who don't feel seen very much in life really like that. People who feel like they're on the outskirts and they're not really visible to other people really like that attention from the INFJ. And they're like, oh, wow, this person really gets me. And again, that brings us full circle to when sometimes we're like, well, I didn't really want to get that deep in with you, so I kind of should cut you off, but I feel guilty about it. So we're full circle on that again. So that's kind of my take on being an INFJ. And a lot of people have issues with the Myers-Briggs. That's fine. For me, it was really helpful to have some definitions and an explanation that I am a particular way and that other people are like this. And it helped me kind of source out some solutions to some problems I've been having because there was no one else in my life like me. And so I didn't have any models to go after, everyone says do it this way, but that doesn't work for me. But this other INFJ, this historic figure, this public figure that I know is an INFJ, or I suspect is an INFJ, has a solution for this situation that I can copy. That was really helpful to me. The self-knowledge, self-awareness is something that INFJs are really big on anyway. So having this label helps you just deepen that. But also I think it's really important not to get really invested in that too much because it's only one way of looking at yourself. Other personality types will give you other ways of looking at yourself, and you can go down those rabbit holes and investigate those so you get a better understanding of yourself. All that self-awareness really helps you develop a better understanding of life, and I've developed a lot of strategies and tools and techniques for myself that I like to teach to my clients as introverts, as intuitives, not just INFJs, but anybody who has these things and is struggling in a world that really isn't built for people like us. So we need to approach the world in a different way. But at the same time, we need to understand that we have a very valid and meaningful purpose in the world. And in fact, if you think about it, like the greatest movers and shakers in the world are always in the minority. You know, the 1% of people who make the historical changes in the world, probably less than 1%, and roughly 1% of people are INFJs. Now, they're not saying that all INFJs are going to be the ones who change the world, but just because you're in the minority doesn't mean you don't matter. It means you can change the world. It can be your unique view that no one else has because you're in the minority that changes the world. You could be the first to come up with an idea. You could be the first to point out a solution. As INFJs, we tend to not be the leaders. We tend to be the ones whispering in the ears of leaders, the wise advisors to them, the ones who shift their focus. Like I said, that when we meet somebody and we say something to them that is obvious to us, but to them, it's a click. And when we can do that to someone in a position to make change, that's a really powerful thing. We affected that change. And that's one of the purposes of INFJs, to affect change. We're altruistic, we're empathetic, we're intuitive, we're creative thinkers. All those different things we investigate, we draw from one and the other and can link them together and come up with solutions no one else ever thought of. And then we can use that understanding to help the world become a better place. Figuring out how best to do that in this world where a lot of people are specialized and you're expected to have a career doing one thing. I have a whole video about like shamans and INFJs and why they kind of overlap, but shamans were in a simpler world where one shaman filled a lot of roles that are today very different roles: therapist, healer, negotiator, judge, advisor. These are all things that are more specialized roles in today's world. So as an INFJ, you have to move beyond the kind of broad scope, and to fit into this world is you have to be kind of more specialized in your career. So figuring that out can be pretty tough. If you want some help with that, that is one thing I help with as a coach. There's a link in the description down below. You can click that and book a one-on-one consultation with me. Now, if you want to find out more about this, I have a whole series of videos on INFJs. I'm going to leave a link right here to that playlist. I will continue to expanding on it. I hope you find it's really interesting, and peace.